What's up, guys? It's your boy Mike Skinner from First to 20. Today we're going to be talking about my favorite ink color in the game right now, and that could change from set to set, but as of right now, this is most definitely my favorite ink to play. I love the cards that it has in it, I love the characters that it has in it, and I just love the overall theme. It has a lot to do with discarding cards and stopping your opponent from doing things, so really love this, and I'm excited to dive right in with you guys. So just a quick disclaimer for everybody, I am not a Lorcana pro in any way. These are just my opinions on the cards. Obviously you can have different opinions on the cards. You might think cards are super playable, while I think cards are really not good. This is just for fun, and I'm just doing this so I can go over the cards with you guys, and maybe you can learn something you didn't know before. Alrighty, first up we have Duke of Wesselton, and yeah, we've definitely seen this before. This is just your generic 1-drop. It is a 2/2, so it's a solid card, and most aggro lists do play Duke of Wesselton. Up next we have Stampede, which is a 1-drop that cannot be used as ink. Deal 2 damage to chosen damaged character. This card I think is not bad. I have yet to see it used a lot. It is some nice removal for an ink color that doesn't have a ton of removal. I can see this in combination with the steel ink archetype, just because you're able to play Tinkerbell, deal 1 damage to everything, and then they're injured, so maybe you can snipe something off. But overall, I think this is just going to be a better limited card. Because it is removal, and in limited you have very limited removal, but I am not sure whether it will make its way into a constructed format. Up next we have Vicious Betrayal. If you're playing villains, you know, I could see this being a good card for one, considering that you can always use it for ink later on. So villain decks are not really a thing that I've seen too much of lately, but maybe a thing in the future of the meta, who knows, or even in set 2 when there are more villains. So this could be a card that you want to keep an eye on, but right now I think it's just alright. Up next we have Cruella de Vil, and this is the first of a couple really awesome 2-drops in this color. So she does provide ink, and her ability is You'll Be Sorry. So when this character is challenged and banished, you may return chosen character to their player's hands. She is a 1/3, which is already really good for 2, because she does not die to 2/2s or 2/1s. So that's really nice. She does provide 1 lore, and her ability in general is just really good. So if your opponent tries to get rid of her for any reason, you can send a chosen character back to their hand. A lot of the cards in this color banish or target the same character that attacked them, but she's unique because she actually lets you choose the character that goes back to your opponent's hand, which is very powerful. Unfortunately, she has to be attacked. You can't attack into something to get the effect, but I still think she's very good, and I do think she'll be seeing plenty of play in Constructed. Up next we have Aladdin Prince Ali. He is a 2-drop that also provides ink, and he has Ward. He's a 2/2. Just a solid 2-drop, can't be targeted by stuff, which is fun. Could be nice to kind of pair up with a 5-drop Aladdin that's in Ruby, because you can't target this one, and then all of a sudden you turn into the big one, so maybe that in the future. I haven't seen it too much, and most likely a nice card to pick up in Limited, and maybe in the future will be in Constructed as well. Dr. Facilier's cards. So this is a 2-drop that cannot be used as ink. The cards will tell. So you can exert this to pay 1 less for the next action you play this turn. So this is similar to Lantern that we showed in Amber, which allow you to play the next character for 1 less. This one does allow you to play the next action for 1 less. I have seen some lists running this. Personally, I don't run this card, and I haven't really experimented a lot with this card, so it's hard to say exactly whether or not it's good. Maybe in some of the song decks it would be nice, because you can make it cost less. So don't know if that's a thing, but overall right now I'm just not sure how I feel about this card, but it doesn't seem awful. Alrighty, up next we have Sudden Chill, and this is a 2-drop that can be used as ink. Each opponent chooses and discards a card. So this card is a song, so it can be sung, which is very nice, and your opponent chooses and discards a card. So discarding cards in this game is really powerful. It's good in every game really, but in this game you really don't have a huge hand unless you're playing an archetype that really gets a lot of cards in their hand. So being able to have your opponent discard a card in their hand is really powerful, especially when it's a song. So it doesn't take up your whole turn. You can just exert something and make them discard, so that's really nice. Up next we have the first of a few different Genie cards. So this is the 2-drop Genie that can also be used as ink, the Ever Impressive. He is a 2/3, which is nice, and he's just got decent stats, and he is a 2-drop that produces 1 lore. Overall, just a solid card. Most likely, like I said earlier in my other videos, a lot of these blank cards are most likely just great for draft, just because you're able to get good cards with stats that can also be used as ink, and you know, these guys are really nice for that, especially in a format where you're not able to draft all the best cards in the game. So he is definitely probably solid for that. Other than that, unless there's a card in the future that maybe gives a a bonus to cards that don't have text. Right now he's probably just a card for draft. Up next we have Megara, and it is a 2-drop that is also able to be inked. And Wonder Boy, great title for her ability. When you play this character, chosen character gets +2 this turn, +2 attack this turn. So she comes in, she provides the buff, which I think is significantly better than something like Vicious Betrayal, where it's just a one-time thing. She is also a one-time thing, but she is a body as well, which you can produce lore with, you could attack into things with. So she's definitely pretty decent, and I think in the right deck, this card could see some play. Alrighty, let's get to the good stuff. So this is Flynn Rider, Charming Rogue. He is a 2-drop that also can be used as ink, and his ability is Here Comes the Smolder. Whenever this character is challenged, the challenging player chooses and discards a card. So this card is absolutely amazing, and the main reason for that, other than his ability, is that he produces 2 lore. So 2-drop produces 2 lore, okay? And whenever you attack into him, you have to discard a card, which is super powerful. This is a 4 of in almost every single Emerald deck. He is so good. And although he does die to, a lot of things, he is an immediate threat because of his 2 lore, and he will cause your opponent to have to disrupt their hand. So all in all, this is A+, amazing card. Up next, we have a little Tamatoa. Not much to say here. Very similar to all the other vanilla cards. It is a 1/4. It is a 2-drop, produces ink. And, nice stats, so 4 is nice, and overall just another draft card. Stolen Scimitar. So this is a 2-drop that does produce ink. It is an item, and its ability is Slash, so you can exert this. Chosen character gets +1 attack this turn. If the character's name is Aladdin, he gets +2 attack instead. Honestly, the chances of you having Aladdin in play for this to be like extra good is pretty slim, unless you're playing some kind of Aladdin deck, which I don't think you'll be playing. Overall, I think this card is definitely just a card for draft. Horus is a 3-drop that can be used as ink, unfortunately without an ability, but as we've said before, very good for limited. Little friend here, Jasper. I don't know if they're brothers or are they just co-workers. I don't know. What are they to each other? Jasper is the common crook. So he is a 3-drop that is also able to be inked, and Puppy Napping, oh, so sad, is his ability. Whenever this character quests, chosen opposing character can't quest during their next turn. So this ability is very unique in that it targets an opponent's character and then they're not able to quest next turn. So in games that are really close where you're racing for lore, it is amazing that it will allow them not to quest. Another thing I really like about this card is a lot of times, once it gets close to the end of the game, your opponent may not attack or quest. They might just build up a board and then try to do like a mass quest. So this allows you to keep exerting, and you can target something, whether it's exerted or not, and stop it from being able to quest. So this card I think is really good. I haven't seen it in every single list just because it is hard to find space sometimes, but I do think it's a very solid card in the right archetype. 2/4, so he's got great stats. 4 is above average. I think this card is really good. Up next, we have Do It Again. So this is a 3-drop that cannot be inked. Return an action card from your discard pile to your hand, and it is also an action itself. So yeah, this is pretty clear, that you can pick up stuff from the discard pile. I have seen a deck on Twitter that plays this along with Just in Time to go ahead and revive that. Overall, I think this card may see some constructed play in the future as they continue to release really powerful action cards, but for now, I think it's close to being a limited card. Mother Knows Best. So yes, she does. So this is a 3-drop that is not inkable. It is a song, which I love songs, and return chosen character to their player's hands. So this is very powerful. So as you know, in this game, characters come in and they cannot quest the same turn or do anything the same turn that they come in. So this is really powerful because you're able to set your opponent back a complete other turn because they have to go ahead and play the character again and then wait again for another turn to use it. So this card is very good, and the fact that it is a song just makes it over the top good because you're able to cast it for free on some turns by exerting your character. Overall, just a really solid card. I think this card is going to see a lot of play. Up next, we have Peter Pan Never Landing. Get it? It is a 3-drop and it does produce ink. 3/2 stats, not terrible for a 3-drop. Would have liked to see a 3/3 maybe, but he is evasive, so I guess he's harder to hit. And he does produce 1 lore. Overall, just a solid evasive card. I can see this being really good in limited just because he is evasive, and there are limited amounts of evasive when you're drafting, so he could be strong there. But overall, in this kind of decks, I just think that there are better 3-drops, and we will get into one in just a little bit. Next up, we have Iago, Loudmouth Parrot, and he is a 3-drop that can be inked. You got a problem? I don't know. I can't do my Iago voice. Exert. Chosen character gains Reckless during their next turn, so they can't quest and have to challenge. This card I think really had potential. Unfortunately, it just gets outshined by Jasper. This ability is kind of similar. You know, they can't quest and they have to challenge you. He is a 1/4. Jasper is a 2/4 for the same cost. So overall, I just think Jasper outshines Iago. The Beast is Mine. This is a 3-drop that can be used as ink. Chosen character gains Reckless during their next turn. This is an action. So again, tying in with Iago's ability, character cannot quest, has to challenge if able. I think it's a little expensive at 3 costs, and it's not a song, so you can't sing it. So I'm not sure how good this card will be. I don't know if I want to spend my whole turn making something reckless when I could be developing my board or something else. So I don't think this card is very good. Next up, we have Mickey Mouse, Steamboat Pilot. This is a 3-drop that can be inked and is a 3/4. No ability for Mickey here, which is sad. And he's actually the same stat line as the Wardrobe, which we spoke about yesterday in my other video. Just a solid vanilla card. I do like this one. Next up, we have a very powerful 3-drop, probably one of the most powerful. It is Cheshire Cat, Not All There. And this is a 3-drop that can be inked, and the ability is Lose Something. When this character is challenged and banished, banish the challenging character. It gives you 2 lore, which is very powerful, as we referred to earlier. You know, 2 lore is just great. And 0/3, unfortunately, it doesn't deal any damage, but your opponent will have to deal with it, or else it will continue to tick up that 2 lore, and it is very good with Flynn Rider, just racing that 2 lore. It adds up very quickly, so when your opponent does try to deal with it, it banishes the challenging character. So as long as the character is banished, it will banish the character back. So really good effect. It goes ahead and removes something. This color doesn't have a lot of direct removal, so this is definitely their way of removing stuff, and I think it is a great card. Alrighty, up next we have Hans, Scheming Prince. This is a 4-drop that can be inked, and a 3/3, so a little bit of a low average stats. However, I know I talk a lot about how these vanilla cards really aren't that great in constructed. I would say Hans is definitely the exception to the rule. He has 3 lore, which is whopping for a 4-drop, and he is definitely scheming because this card is really good. He is a villain, so maybe in the future, you know, villain decks, you know, who knows. But he is great at producing lore, especially because Emerald usually is trying to play aggressive strategies, at least right now in the meta it is. So him being able to come down and start ticking for 3 is very strong. Alrighty, next up is Tinkerbell, the most helpful. She is a 4-drop that can be inked, and she is evasive, so that is nice. Pixie Dust, so when she comes into play, she can choose a character and give it evasive. So this is really good for attacking into evasive characters. So maybe your opponent has a pesky evasive character. You haven't been able to interact with it because you don't have any other evasive characters. Well, you can go ahead and play Tinkerbell. She'll give something else evasive, and then they can attack into it. So that's really great. Unfortunately, it's only for your turn, so the character will lose evasive once it goes to your opponent's turn, and then they can attack into the character. So that's not great. But I do think her ability still has some great uses, and she's a 2/3 in stats, but she does produce 2 lore. And 2 lore, I know it just seems like 1 more than 1 lore, but 2 lore, once you play against it, the clock is just that much faster. So 2 lore is very powerful. I played this card in a couple of my decks, and she is definitely solid, especially as a tech card to kind of deal with evasive threats. Up next, we have an action, Steal from the Rich. This is a 5-drop that cannot be inked. Whenever one of your characters quests this turn, each opponent loses 1 lore. I guess if it ever gets to a point where I have a super wide board, you play this and then you turn them all sideways and your opponent loses all. I don't know. This card remains to be seen how good this card is. On the surface, I want to say it's not that great. It does seem like a combo card. So we'll see what the future holds for Steal from the Rich. Alrighty, so we're getting into the 5-drop characters, and there are some very powerful ones in Emerald. This is the Gracious Host, Mad Hatter. He is a 5-drop that can be inked as well, and his ability is Tea Party. Whenever this character is challenged, you may draw a card. So as you've noticed in my other Emerald cards, there's not a lot of card draw. There's really not a way to replenish your hand unless you team it up with Amethyst and you're drawing a bunch of cards, so that's obviously an option. But Emerald itself does not draw a ton of cards, so this really helps. It's got 2/4 for stats, so that 4 defense is pretty decent, but it does again produce 3 lore. Are you seeing a theme here? This color just produces so much lore. It's the main reason why it's in all the aggro decks, so this color is, you know, really good for that. And I think Mad Hatter is a 4 of in every Emerald deck. He is just really, really good. Next up, we have Jumba Dukiba. He looks like Jabba the Hutt's cousin. So he is a 5-drop that can be used as ink, and he is a vanilla card that just has a 4/5 stat line. So, you know, pretty decent. And then he does produce 2 lore, so that's nice. I think he just gets outshined by Mad Hatter and Cusco, who we'll get into next. But I think this is a good card for limited. Up next, we have the man himself, Cusco, Temperamental Emperor. I want to see a card of Cusco where he's a llama, but this is the human form, and he is a 5-drop that cannot be inked, and he has Ward, so he cannot be targeted by cards that banish, cards that do anything from the hand, or even Elsa, which is really, really nice. And his ability is no touchy, so when this character is challenged and banished, you may banish the challenging character. So we saw this earlier with the Cheshire Cat, so it is the same effect, except that this card has Ward, so the only way your opponent can really deal with it is to either attack it and lose their character, or to play Be Prepared, which we will talk about in my next video, which is the only board wipe in the game. So that card could also deal with this card, but if it has to target, he will not be touched, so that's a great, great ability. And then he does produce, again, 3 lore, which is really powerful, and he is a 2/4 in stats, the same as the Mad Hatter. So him and the Mad Hatter together, same stat line, same amount of lore, but just different abilities, and they're both very powerful. So here we have another 5-drop that cannot be used as ink, and it is Beast Wolfsbane. And he does have Rush, so he can come down and attack something right away, which is definitely nice. His ability is Roar, so when you play this character, exert all opposed damaged characters. I'm not sure how good his ability is. I can definitely see a situation where it's super strong, but then I see a lot of situations where it does nothing. So maybe Rush is just good enough. He can come down and attack into something. I'm just not sure. It is a legendary, which I think is pretty surprising. So this card, I guess, is projected to be really great. And I see definitely where they're going with it. It definitely could be powerful. I just don't know a lot of board states where I want to exert a damaged character. You know, I don't know that I've had a lot of situations where that would be a great thing to have. But maybe this card is super powerful. I definitely need some more time to be testing this card, and I do think it's really good. Alrighty, that wraps up our 5-drops. We are now in the 6-drop, so this is John Silver, Alien Pirate. He can be used as ink, and shout out to Lorcana for putting in Treasure Planet cards. I'm sure a lot of people don't expect to see these kind of cards, so very, very good choice. His ability is Pick Your Fights, so when you play this character and whenever he quests, so both, chosen opposing character gains Reckless on their next turn, so they can't quest and they have to challenge, and he does produce 2 lore. I really think this is great just for being able to stop something from questing. As I mentioned earlier, Reckless is good for that, and he does produce 2 lore, which is great. 5/5 stat line is healthy. He's just a big boy, you know, so this card is pretty good, and I think it's definitely in some decks just as a late game curve. Alrighty, up next we have Mother Gothel, Selfish Manipulator. She is a 6-drop that can be used as ink, another villain, and skip the drama, stay with mama. While this character is exerted, opposing character cannot quest. So this stops your whole opponent from being able to quest, period, unless they kill her, and she is a 6 defense. So unless you're playing a card like Maui that is a beast and eats everything with a 6 defense, it's going to be really tough to get rid of her. So she just sits there and play. She quests for 2, which is really nice. And then while she's exerted, your opponent cannot quest. So if you're able to make it to turn 6, I could see this being really strong against aggro. The problem is that aggro is just so fast that sometimes it does not even matter. But overall, she is a solid card, and I could definitely see her getting a lot of play. Alrighty, next up we have the Genie on the Job, and it is a 6-drop that cannot be inked, and his ability is Disappear. So when you play this character, you may return chosen character to their player's hands. It reduces 2 lore and is a 3/4. The ability to just bounce something back to your opponent's hand, as we mentioned earlier with Cruella, very powerful. This definitely can swing a lot of games when your opponent is playing cards at the very end of the game and you guys are kind of going back and forth, and then you're able to bounce something. Really, really strong. Unfortunately, there are a lot of cards that come into play and do a really nice effect. So when Genie targets those, you're kind of giving your opponent an advantage by letting them play it again. But overall, I do think this card has very great situations where it's super powerful. And another thing about this card is there's actually an enchanted version of it. I love that he has like the little guard over here or the Sultan or whatever that is, and he has them like tiny and the Genie is huge. So really nice job on the artwork here, and one of the cool enchanted cards in the game. So very nice. Alrighty, we are approaching the end here. We have Lady Tremaine, Wicked Stepmother. This is a 6-drop that cannot be inked. Her ability is Do It Again. So when you play this character, you may return an action card from your discard to your hand. So again, just like the card we talked about earlier that was an action, she goes ahead and grabs an action and puts it back in your hand. I actually think this is a better version just because she is an actual character that can quest and attack and do all that stuff. So I really do prefer when I see the abilities attached to a character. However, she is a 6-drop, so it may be a little late, but I can definitely maybe see a combo deck or something in the future where you need to get back a action from your discard pile, and she's able to do that. Alrighty, and we have a stronger Emerald Mickey Mouse. So this is the Artful Rogue. He is a 7 cost that cannot be inked, and he does shift in for 5. So a 7 drop that you can play on turn 5 on top of the previous Mickey that we discussed, Steamboat Willie. So that's really nice. And Misdirection is his ability. When you play an action, chosen opposing character can't quest during their next turn. So this is like Jasper. He does target something and makes it so that it cannot quest on their next turn, which is really great. And he is a 6/5, so a really good stat line, and he does produce 2 lore. I haven't seen a ton of this card, and I feel like maybe if the format slows down a little bit, it can definitely be played. But right now, every Emerald deck I see is trying to kill you by turn 4 or 5. This card also has an enchanted version, which is super nice. Probably my least favorite, honestly, of all the enchanted versions. The art is very nice, but I just think that it doesn't have a lot going on, but it's pretty cool. And last but not least, we have Genie Powers Unleashed. He is an 8 drop, and he can shift in for 6. So if you have another Genie, he can come in earlier. Evasive, so we know he's already evasive, and his ability is Phenomenal Cosmic Power. So whenever this character quests, you may play an action with a 5 or less cost for free. He is a 3/5 in stats, so not too crazy, but he does produce 3 lore, which is nice. This ability is very strong if you are able to play a crazy card that costs 5 or less for free. I could definitely see a world in the future where you're playing Lady Tremaine, getting a card back to your hand, playing Genie, playing the card for free. All that sounds really cool on paper. Unfortunately, like I said, right now the meta is just too fast for these kind of cards, but I do think there's hope in the future when more cards are able to interact with these wide boards and we're able to play a little bit of a slower matchup. I can definitely maybe see a cool combo deck playing this Genie. But honestly, when I look at this Genie, all I can see is the Green Ranger. You know, this thing he's wearing on his chest. I don't know what's going on here, but I like it. And it's a very cool card, and I hope in the future it does see some play. If you learned something from this video or you enjoyed it, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. And if you want to talk more about Lorcana, hit me up on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at First220. I'm on there all the time, chatting it up with all the Lorcana peeps, so definitely say hello. I'm super excited. As of recording this video, we are a week away from Lorcana, so 1 week from today, I will either be crying because the cards are too expensive, or I will be playing with real Lorcana cards. So one of those two, but either way, I'm super happy to bring you guys some videos. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it's going to probably be hectic, but just remember to be kind out there. It's the most important thing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.